It's a nice morning as I pedal my bike across town. There's a nice crispness in the air, and I'm enjoying watching this sunrise as I bike to my first real job. I got a job at one of the dorms on one of the campuses in town, working with the various custodians. Our job is to clean up the dorms from last year's students and get them ready for the incoming students. Now, I get there at 7 and everybody's already there, having some coffee, having a chat. Work is supposed to start at 7, but everybody just sits around and talks until 8. They can see that I'm tired, so they encourage me to go to one of the student lounges and lie down on the couches and sleep. They'll come get me when it's time to work. 8 o'clock comes, they get me, and we're going upstairs. Our job is to start at the top, work our way down, and we're taking all the mattresses out today. We take the mattresses out, we got to get them down the hall, into the elevators, down in the basement where they'll be picked up so they can be cleaned. Now there's two other people like me, two other kids who are involved in the same program, which encourages kids to get jobs and understand what it's like to work. And we gamify this whole job. We're just having a ball. We race, for example. We take our mattresses and we run down the hall as fast as possible to see who can win and get the mattress to the end of the hall fastest. Hoping, of course, that we don't clip one of the doors. Because if you run at full speed with a mattress and the mattress clips a door, you're going to get the wind knocked out of you. We invent a game called mattress jousting, which means we're running at each other with these mattresses, seeing who can stand up after smacking into each other. So we're having a ball. And then 9 o'clock comes. So we've been working for an hour. 9 o'clock comes and it's time to take our 15-minute break. That 15-minute break, in fact, becomes an hour break. At 10 o'clock, we go back to work until noon. This is one of the longest stretches of work that we take, 2 hours in a row. We get our hour break at 1. We get another 15-minute break at 2, which turns into an hour break until 3. And then we spend the last hour locking up before we leave at 4. Now, I'm surprised how much I like doing this. It's fun. We're giggling. We're having fun. The people are pretty cool. Everybody's just laid back and chill, which is different. It's different because everybody I know hates work. My grandpa comes home from work dirty and tired. My mom hates going to work. She looks forward to days off. Every television program that I watch they have characters that treat work as if it's some kind of a necessary evil. Yet here I am having fun. And I'm 14 years old. $50 is a lot of money. $100 is unheard of. And here I am every 2 weeks. I'm getting over $200, $250 every 2 weeks. $200 over and over again. I can't believe it. But eventually it starts to hit me. It starts to hit me that I don't know if I even deserve this money. I'm supposed to go to work from 7 to 4 with just an hour off and a couple of 15-minute breaks, yet I don't even know if I get 5 hours of work in. And I'm goofing off all day long. And I'm sleeping for part of this. Yet I'm getting $200 every 2 weeks. Now I go along with it because that's what everybody else is doing. So the feelings of guilt are lessened, but there's still guilt. There's still part of me that feels really guilty about it. And that's what I want to talk about today. Money and guilt. Find out more right after this. Hey, it's Derek Hagan. I'm a financial therapist, financial life planner, here with another Money Health presentation talking about money and guilt. So, guilt is a heavy burden to bear. It's something that once you have it, it really eats away at you. And, remember my 14-year-old self felt guilty because I didn't feel like I deserved the money. And the more you don't feel like you deserve your money, the more you're going to feel guilty for having it. So if we can nip this, if we can get rid of guilt, and we'll talk about different ways that we can do that, it will help us feel better. It will help us feel a lot happier. Okay. So guilt is defined as the feeling I get when I violated somebody else's rights. Okay, to think about that, let's think of the opposite. Somebody violated my rights. That will lead to anger, generally speaking. If somebody violated my rights, I'm going to feel angry about that. Now, if I violate somebody's rights, I'm going to feel guilty about that. Now that could be somebody else's rights. I go to work, I'm really hungry, there's food in the fridge, I go and I eat somebody else's food. And then I see them later looking for their food. I feel really guilty about that because I violated their rights. I stole their food. But it could be yourself. You could violate your own rights. I have a rule. I'm only going to go out to eat once this week. But I went out to eat every day this week. I'm going to feel guilty because I violated my own rules. Could even be bigger picture. You're a part of some group and you didn't do anything specifically, but some members of your group did something to somebody else. Right? You're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, but you're well behaved. But members of your group, Eagles fans, beat up some people from the other team. You can feel guilty about being a part of that group. So that's what guilt is. Now, financial guilt is very much related to that. So it's the same thing, just adding a layer of money on top of it. Right? So I could have stolen or otherwise cheated somebody else's rights to get more money, or I could have broken my own financial rules. I could have said, I'm going to save 15% of my paycheck, and then I go buy something. I'm not going to buy any more big purchases, and then I do. I'm going to feel guilty about that. Now, I want to talk about something that kind of comes up a lot in the finance world, and that's feeling guilty for having money because somebody else doesn't, or I only have money because somebody else passed away. So this feeling of financial guilt happens a lot when, say, somebody passes away and I get a life insurance payout because of it. Or sometimes worse, my spouse dies at work and then I get a legal settlement because of that. That feels really bad because it's good that I have money, but somebody had to die. A loved one had to die in order for me to get this money. Now, let's go back to what guilt means. It means that I violated somebody's rights. So unless I actually killed the person who died, there's really no source for guilt. I'm not saying that those icky feelings are wrong or shouldn't be there. What I am saying is that it's not guilt. And so getting a big windfall when you're grieving is problematic because you are grieving and you're feeling sadness, and you should feel sadness. Sadness is what happens when something is taken away from you or you lose something that you had, and you can feel sad and you're going through that grieving process, and at the same time something good happens, you get this money. Now, I don't want to feel good because remember, I'm still sad and I want to feel sad, and something good happens. Now, instead of treating those as two separate things, I can feel good about this and I can feel sad about that. We tend to kind of group those together and we call it guilt. I feel guilty that I have this money. But I want you to, if this is you, if this is something like you, try to lean into that and parse those feelings out. Because what you're feeling is extreme sadness. It's not guilt. You didn't do anything. There's no guilt to be had there. Okay. Now, guilt, the more you feel guilt, it separates you and happiness. It keeps you from being happy. There's 5 elements of happiness: spiritual well-being, physical well-being, intellectual well-being, relational well-being, and emotional well-being. And guilt prevents several of those things from happening. So, for example, spiritual well-being, being present. I can't feel present if I'm worried about something that I did in the past, or worried about how something I did in the past will manifest in the future. It keeps me from being present. If I'm feeling guilty, it's going to be hard for me to find meaning in my life or to feel a sense of purpose. Or relational well-being. Obviously, guilt, if I'm violating somebody else's rights, it's going to be hard for me to have a relationship with that person, and my relational well-being is at risk. And of course, this is an emotion, so emotional well-being will be impacted. Now, there's a couple of parts to emotional well-being. The first one is to cultivate positive emotions and to cope with negative ones. So coping with guilt, the longer it takes to cope with our guilt, the harder it's going to be for us to be happy, to satisfy emotional well-being. The other side of that coin, though, is to not push away are feeling. So if you feel guilt, don't pretend it's not there. Don't squash it down. You want to lean into it. You want to ask it why it's here. And that's the shtick here. Why do you feel guilty? What behavior can you point to that causes you to feel guilt? Because you can't just avoid the guilt. It's never going to go away. Learning from it is what you want to do. So why do you feel guilty? What rights did you violate? Did you break one of your own rules? Did you take something from somebody? But what did you do? What causes this guilt? And then what can you do about it? If there's something you can do, you should do it. That could be making amends or making an apology, or it could be stopping something that you're currently doing that is providing the guilt. Remember, you can't change the past, but you have a lot of influence over the future. So what lessons are there in this guilt that you can learn? Guilt is a strong motivator. It's a strong motivator. So what you want to do is try to figure out what it's telling you. Remember, you can't change the past, but you can use those lessons to design a better future. You only have one life. Live intentionally.